episode of Highlights from the Permanent Collection. This episode was actually supposed to air last week, but we decided to delay it because of the storm, which reminds me, I hope you're all safe and well. I know that was pretty scary for me because I've never experienced wind like that, but hopefully, we all survived. We're all well and good. So this week, we are going to be talking about a zebra mask from Libya, and then Mac has brought another interview for us with Erica Babino, and she's a children's book author. So let's go ahead and get started. This is a zebra mask from Libya. Speaking generally about African masks in African cultures, it's believed that wearing the mask of a specific animal can help you communicate with that animal or give you attributes which you might desire from them. The last mask we did, the Kifwebe, has stripes, and those are said to embody the stripes of a zebra. Other masks we have in our collection have things like sharp animal-like teeth so that the wearer can appear more powerful or fearsome, but also, obtain those powers. This week's book is about helping children learn to communicate and problem solve and learn conflict resolution. It's about putting yourself in the mind frame of someone who's different than you and having compassion and using kind words to communicate with them. It's about realizing that even though there are people who are different than you, there's often more ways in that you're similar, and using those similarities as a driving force for goodness and kindness. I often feel that, children and animals are like the purest forms of being, which is kind of why I chose the mask for today, because it's all about putting yourself in that mind frame of innocence and learning and experience. And as adults, that's often kind of hard to do, because I feel like we grow up, we learn specific ways to be, and it's easy to forget. Anyways, that's kind of why I, like I said, chose the mask for this week, because it's all about the same things. It's about communicating on a higher, more positive level. So we'll go ahead and get to the interview with Mac and Erica Babino. I hope to see you next week, and have a good one. Bye.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our special little interview series with highlights of the Permanent Collection. Today, we have Erica Babino. She's a Lamar alumni and author of the Speaking in Green children's book series. Hello. We're so happy to have you.
Hello.
I'm
so glad to be here.
Yes. I firstly want to share with the audience that I actually found Erica's book online when I was researching for Southeast Texas authors, and I was like, dang, I wish I could somehow get in contact with her. And then Chris, the author of our last interview series, I just briefly mentioned it to him, or he mentioned that his aunt was a published author, and I was like, oh, well, who is she? I need to know her. And he was like, oh, her name's Erica Babino. And I was like, hold up. I was like, this is perfect. Please send me her information. So we are really happy that we live in such a small little area and we were able to get in contact with you. So I first want you to tell us a little bit about you. You mentioned that you grew up in the area. And I want to hear a little bit about that and a little bit about your time at Lamar also.
All right. Well, I did grow up in Beaumont in what's called the Pear Orchard. And I went to Assumption School, Our Lady of the Assumption. And then I graduated from Monsignor Kelly High School. And then I went on to Lamar University. I majored in political science. My time at Lamar was an interesting time. I got involved in the Black Student Union and several organizations, but I was in the dance company, and that's where I spent most of my time in the 4 years that I was there. I was in the, were you
I'm
too?
on the dance team. I'm on the dance team.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We performed at the center, and it was great. So I spent a lot of time in the dance studio area.
That's
So
so awesome. Was
that's
that
like my
when?
fond memory, and I'm still friends with people from the dance company too.
That's so amazing to hear. I love that. So you are obviously a published author. And I read that you have a lot of certifications in different kind of mediation techniques. But tell us exactly what you do now and where you are, because she is not in Beaumont anymore.
I'm not. I'm not. I am in Portland, Oregon, and I've also lived in Washington State. And like after Lamar, I ended up in the insurance industry and was in human resources for a long time, specializing in diversity and inclusion work. And then owned a family State Farm insurance for 10 years, and just stayed in the diversity and inclusion area. But I went and got certificates in different types of mediation. And so I have a 12-year background in mediation, conflict management. And so that's part of why my books are about conflict management for children, with definitely a diversity and inclusion lens as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
And that's what I do now. I'm in diversity and inclusion right now as well.
Yes, you work at a school, right?
I do. I work at a school that's a independent school that's K through 12, and I am the assistant director of diversity and inclusion. And then I also have a business, Speaking Green Solutions LLC, and I do work with corporations and higher learning schools on conflict management and diversity and inclusion.
I bet that's really interesting in a time like now. Am I
It's
right?
very I'm like now. Yes. Yes. I mean, it's a very very confusing, sad, angry. I mean, there's so many emotions swirling around right now. Yet for diversity and inclusion, there's so many companies, schools reaching out for help, because I think after this past May, I think a lot of people who didn't get it are getting it. And so there's a lot of training and workshops and discussions and things going on that's definitely has been needed long before now, but hey,
Yeah.
it's happening now, and that's what's great.
Yeah, definitely a long time coming, but I mean, you would know better than me, but definitely better now than never. You mentioned that your major was political science and then you got into insurance. So you've been in a few different fields. So from being at Lamar and then throughout your career to now, how has your career goals transitioned into what exactly you're doing now? And is it something that you always imagined yourself doing, or did something along the way happen that brought you here?
Wow, that's a really great question.
Thank you.
I think my goal when I left Lamar was to go to law school, and life changes, things happened, and I did not end up going, went into the workforce. I knew that insurance was not my forever. But when I went into human resources, I got into employee relations and diversity and inclusion work, and that just felt right. So in all aspects of work that I've done since that time has had some diversity and inclusion lens. And then I ended up working, helping write some legislation and lobbying and getting a little into the political realm. And I just knew that this is where I wanted to be. I knew that diversity and inclusion work was what I wanted, but I wanted to also have a focus on conflict management, because within diversity and inclusion, there's a lot of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So that went hand in hand. And, it's just a series of events that happens in life where sometimes you end up exactly where you need to be, exactly where you were supposed to be. And I'm finally at this stage in life where I know I'm where I'm supposed to be. This is my vision, my goals, and I know my purpose now. Yeah. So life is great. Despite everything else going on in the world, life is good.
I love that. I love that so much. I feel like you worded that perfectly too.
Thank you.
So, kind of transitioning into your writing more so.
Mhm.
Did your writing simply begin as a way for you to reach children, or was it something separate from that and then you used it for that purpose?
I've always been a writer. Um, when I published my first book, my mom said, well, this totally makes sense. I've always been a writer. I've written journals and little short stories since I was in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that writing was the way to express myself. Even though I do public speaking and everything, if I really need to say something, I do it best in writing.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started out writing the book, I knew that I wanted to reach children because as a mediator, professional mediator, and especially working in the courts and
Mm-hmm.
doing some divorce mediation, I just saw people fighting and arguing so much. And I knew that it had to be affecting the children.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, well, I can do mediation and conflict management workshops and things for adults, but how do I reach the children? And so that's when I decided I wanted to write a children's book because I want to start as early as possible, uh, as much as I can to help children understand how to manage conflict from the inside out,
Mm-hmm.
from understanding what it means on the inside when you feel conflict, then how to express it when it comes out of your mouth and in your body language and everything else. I think that's extremely important, and especially in today's world.
Yes, especially. And I feel like that's, it's very obvious if not before, definitely now that hate and the way you say things is definitely like a learned trait, how you treat other people. So
Right.
it's very
And with the
important.
with the with the diversity and inclusion lens that I have on the book, my characters are very diverse, and the conflicts that they have to do with diverse issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a new one coming out, and it's diversity, equity, and inclusion, and this one has to do more with equity.
Mm-hmm.
Still a conflict, and they're still figuring out how to work out this conflict between them. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that we have to start as young as possible in helping children understand how to deal with conflict when somebody looks, sounds, is different from them.
Yes, definitely. So I do want to talk more specifically about your book. It's Speaking in Green, Rolling into Peace. So
Yes.
this book, it basically teaches the importance of teaching conflict resolution to children, like you mentioned. I love the color-coded words, and there's actually a write-in section in her book and really interesting illustration. So I do want to know a little bit more about this book from your perspective if you feel like you haven't touched as much on it, if you want to go a little more into that.
Well, it is a series of the beginning of a series of books, and they will all deal with different types of conflict that children have, and it will have a diversity and inclusion lens as well. And it's just to give young children and young students an opportunity to hopefully see themselves in this book, whether they're children, they're Black children, Asian, if they're children of color, if they have a disability of some type, or they grew up possibly with equity issues or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want children to see themselves in these books and say, you know what, whatever comes my way, I can figure it out, and I can figure it out with my words.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to fight physically. I don't have to yell. I don't have to scream. I can talk about it and then hopefully find some resolution and maybe even make a friend.
Do you have any advice for someone that is interested in your very diverse career path? Diverse, I say that like you did so many things, but also you work in diversity.
You know, I have lots of friends who do different types of work, and I encourage all of them to go and get mediation and conflict management training,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't care, even unless you just sit by yourself and you don't work with anyone at all, it is excellent experience and training to have. So I encourage all of my friends and family to go ahead and at least get the 40 hours. That is the initial basic mediation certificate. And if they want to go on into the others in marriage and divorce, then I think that's great as well. And as far as diversity and inclusion work, you know, I tell people just to do what you feel. This has always been, you know, when I was going to be an attorney, I was looking at civil rights to be a civil rights attorney.
Mm-hmm.
So this all sort of still fits in. Everything that I've done still fits in and works together. And then as far as a writer, anyone can write. Anyone can publish. I do edit books for people. And so, you know, if somebody has an idea, I help them go from, oh, I have this idea about a book, all the way to self-publishing. And I believe that everyone has a story, whether it's their life story or it's a fictional story. Everyone has a story that they can tell. And I think it's important for us to tell our stories. I think it's important for us to leave a legacy for our families, for somebody else who may benefit from that story. So my advice is to do everything you want to do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me today. Erica's book series, Speaking in Green, can be purchased on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, any major retailer really. And we will, like I mentioned, we'll be doing a giveaway of 2 copies of the Rolling into Peace book in that series. So we hope that we see you next time, and thank you again for joining me.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And to everybody at Lamar University, hell you.